Hey up internet, and welcome back to On the Sofa Live. If you're new, do subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay in the loop. This story is from Novara Media by Stephen Methven. Keir Starmer was a waste of a prime minister. Hasta la vista, baby. Today, we say hasta la vista, baby, to Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Bringing his summer holiday forward, Starmer resigned this morning. Well, not exactly this morning, but you know what I mean. The catalyst? Andy Burnham's unassailable victory in the Makerfield by-election last week. Labour's future, if it even has one, will bounce back into Parliament this afternoon, where it won't be long before a shadow court forms with Labour MPs flocking around Burnham on the hunt for big jobs. Announcing a leadership competition outside Downing Street this morning, Starmer favoured a long goodbye over a swift exit, with a new leader in place only by the end of the summer. An emotional Starmer's voice broke at the end of his speech as he thanked his wife and children. What I want to know is, where were the tears for the children of Gaza? Where were the tears for the thousands of Palestinians killed in Gaza during this genocide? Where were the tears for them? These are just crocodile tears, in my opinion. And it's giving Theresa May. I don't feel sorry for him one iota. I don't feel sorry for him at all. I don't think anyone should. The article goes on. Very likely, those will be the only tears shed today. According to the Financial Times, the Prime Minister spent an agonising 72 hours consulting colleagues, his family and friends about how to construct an orderly exit. Ministers, including Yvette Cooper, Shabana Mahmood, and Ed Miliband, all urged him to set a date for his leaving due ASAP. Others gave him until Tuesday when the cabinet meets. If he'd dithered about going, the Times reported, there would have been resignations. Politics UK reported there'd also been some sulking, with a Labour source apparently saying this: he gave everything to Labour, including sacrificing much of his children's teenage years to help make the party electable. He feels deeply betrayed, especially by those he believed were loyal to him. The karma of it all. Perhaps Jeremy Corbyn will be on hand to help him through the agony of a knife in the back. Starmer's resignation speech leaned heavily into lofty themes: fairness, respect, the country I love. Unsurprising, a kind of grand moral superiority has been a persistent feature of the son of a toolmaker's brand, one not, it must be said, much reflected in his actions. But it's those actions, rather than the high-flatulent language that serves to cloud them, that will be his lasting legacy. And what a legacy it is. Yes, there have been some wins: renters' rights, falling NHS waiting lists, and better protection for workers, but mostly it's been L's. At its heart is Gaza, where the most brazen war crimes and crimes against humanity have been carried out by Israel for nearly 3 years. While leader of the opposition, our human rights lawyer-in-chief, failed to condemn Israel's actions or even call for a ceasefire in the months after October the 7th, some 23,000 members left the party, citing anger over green policy reversals too. When he approved of Israel's cutting off of water and electricity to a trapped civilian population of 2 million people in the enclave, councillors quit en masse. That hurt Labour in the 2024 general election as pro-Gaza independents took seats from his allies. And even in power, his alienated hundreds of thousands of voters by persistently budging the dial as little as humanly possible on our relationship with Israel. From continuing RAF spy flights over Gaza to welcoming Israel's President Isaac Herzog to Downing Street last year, Starmer has consistently put two fingers up to members horrified by genocide. Guess what? That's most of them. Destroying the Labour Party and the values that draw people to it has often appeared to be Starmer's real project. Impoverished children, let them go hungry. Poor pensioners, let them freeze. Those with disabilities, let's go full Dickens. All were U-turned or tamed, but the original intentions behind them won't be forgotten. And that's right, isn't it? He did all that shit. He may have U-turned on some of it, but he still wanted to do it. And he only watered down the rest. And that is what has made him one of the most hated prime ministers for a long time. He's hated by the right and the left. He had to leave, really, let's face it. Much of that self-harm was inflicted in the name of economic stability, but the economic stability for the Starmer government has involved both an anxious fixation on the status quo and an eye to be in front of the line for scraps falling from the American table. It was that dependence that led to the move that sealed his fate. The appointment of Jeffrey Epstein's best pal, Peter Mandelson, as British ambassador to the US, PT, didn't last long. Neither did Starmer. The fact is, Keir Starmer was never the politician to lead the country out of the vandalism that was the 14 years of Tory austerity, a phenomenon he declared was over in his speech. When he came to power, it wasn't on the back of a vision for how things could be different, presumably because Starmer and those behind him didn't see the necessity. Instead, he defined himself against the lowest of bars, not being Liz Truss. Financial responsibility, though, has meant political dereliction. It's been on Starmer's watch that Reform UK has surged in the polls. At a time when political vision has mattered more than ever, the meaning of Starmerism, if there even is such a thing, has been out of focus, and that insecurity has manifested in other dangerous ways. How else to explain the government's mad attachment to authoritarian projects like abolishing many jury trials and wielding terrorism law to arrest thousands of pensioners for holding signs. Andy Burnham will enter Parliament with some advantages. He has no big shoes to fill, but the country will expect to see, and pretty swiftly too, a new leader setting significant space between his future and Starmer's past. Not easy when the Parliamentary Labour Party is so talentless that even at the end a dimming Keir will still appeared its only star, and made much harder when the Labour backbenches are stacked with Starmer drone MPs selected in the former Prime Minister's image. Waste is the word that best describes Starmer's legacy of opportunity, of energy, of hope. There won't be many tears for him, nor down the road for Burnham either, unless he learns the lesson of the last 2 years. The problem is, I don't think Andy Burnham will learn the lesson of the last 2 years. I think he's just Keir Starmer with a northern accent, but I'm going to be talking more about him later. For more of Keir Starmer's legacy, let's see what Helena from No Justice MTG had to say. This is what Helena from No Justice MTG had to say. Keir Starmer's legacy: slashed disability welfare, armed a genocide, arrested pensioners for protesting said genocide, allowed Trump our bases to bomb Iran, drove trans kids to suicide, diminishing rights to trial by jury, appointed a convicted pedo's best pal as US ambassador, ripped up ILR rules, lowest polling for Labour in recorded history. And she's absolutely right. That will be Keir Starmer's legacy. I mean, yes, he's done a few good things, but that's what he'll be remembered for. He'll be remembered for all of the bad things that she listed, because all the good things, all the tinkering around the edges that is done, will be swallowed up by all of this stuff, all of the bad stuff that she's listed there, especially by the genocide enabling. After all, Tony Blair did some good things when he was in office, but all people will remember him for will be Iraq. Going to war with Iraq on the false premise that they had weapons of mass destruction and the dodgy dossier. That's what he's remembered for these days. And the same thing will happen to Keir Starmer. No one will remember the few good things that he did in office. They'll mostly remember the genocide enabling. Danny fucking Price said this: Keir Starmer has today announced his resignation. The Prime Minister plans to leave 10 Downing Street by the end of summer recess. Although there will be a leadership contest, nobody gives a shit about Wes Streeting. Former Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham is set to succeed Keir Starmer and become the next Prime Minister of the UK. Keir Starmer was essentially pushed out of his position by his own party due to the majority of the public openly expressing that the Labour Party had become unelectable under his leadership. Keir Starmer went back on the majority of the pledges he made in his manifesto on the lead-up to the 2024 general election. The then Labour leader took photo opportunities with WASPy women and the trans community while promising to remove sleaze from government. But the reality was he basically told waspy women to go fuck themselves, he threw the trans community under the bus, and he gave one of the government's most important roles to a man who was openly friends with the world's most prolific paedophile. When it comes to immigration and stopping the boats or smashing the GANs, Keir Starmer refused to address the elephant in the room and acknowledged that Brexit meant that the UK also left the EU's Dublin III system, which directly contributed to an incredible rise in small boat crossings. Instead, Keir Starmer disregarded the left and attempted to appeal to the bigots and the patriots that had been indoctrinated by Nigel Farage, the very architect of Brexit, and introduced dogshit policy while scapegoating some of the most vulnerable people in the world. And the Gammons still fucking hated him. Keir Starmer also repeatedly chose Benjamin Netanyahu and the State of Israel over his own citizens, and basically laughed in the face of the Palestinian people, the International Criminal Court, and international law. Keir Starmer, who once condemned Israel, became a genocide enabler and chose to go even further than the Tories did when it comes to free speech and the right to protest. Then, in May this year, the public came out to express their disdain for Keir Starmer's leadership by forcing him to oversee the Labour Party's worst by-election on record. So, having gone against many of his manifesto promises, having shat on those he once supported, having abandoned the Labour left, having gone against the will of the people, and having made a mockery of his status as a human rights barrister, Keir Starmer's downfall was inevitable. I hear there's a vacancy with Keir Starmer's name on it at a really nice retirement home in the fucking Hague. Anyway, I guess we should prepare ourselves for this guy to lead the country.
Of the Labour Party would be to Israel, to show that message from the very start. As leader of the Labour Party, I would make it my business to put those relationships right. And as a start of a 10, I can say tonight that the first foreign visit I would do as leader of the Labour Party would be to Israel, to show that message from the very start.
Yes, exactly. God forbid we get a Prime Minister who has the interests of the majority of the UK at heart. Yeah. And he goes on to say, 7 Prime Ministers in 10 years. That is fucking insane. The man who promised an end to the chaos in Westminster has once again ditched yet another pledge by adding to the revolving door of number 10. Danny fucking Price's analysis is spot on, as always. And I just want to share with you guys something that Jeremy Corbyn said in response to Keir Starmer's farewell speech.
"6 years ago, I inherited a Labour Party that was politically, financially, and morally bankrupt."
I was extremely angry about it. I was proud to be elected and to lead the Labour Party, elected twice to lead it, proud of the policies we developed, all of which were endorsed by Keir Starmer. And when I stepped down from leader of the Labour Party, the party had funds, had 600,000 members, and it had policies that were actually individually very popular across the country about social redistribution. So on the idea it's morally bankrupt, it's a really disgraceful comment to make.
Any message to him as he leaves?
Think very hard of the decisions you've made and the people that you've allowed to direct those decisions. The world is a dangerous place. I get that. I absolutely get that. Instead of spending more and more on arms, let's put more and more effort into trying to bring about diplomacy and peace.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's disgraceful of Keir Starmer to start his farewell speech by saying that he inherited a Labour Party that had become morally bankrupt. That's a disgraceful thing to say, in my opinion. If anyone's morally bankrupt, it's him, the genocide enabler, the person who has been providing arms to Israel, the person who has been training IDF soldiers on British soil, the person who has allowed RAF planes to go on spying missions over Gaza from RAF Akrotiri. He's the one who is morally bankrupt, in my opinion, and that will be Starmer's legacy, a morally bankrupt genocide enabler. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. And please do me a favor and like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and do leave a comment because that would really help me out with the algorithm. Okay, bye for now.